Happy Monday. How's everyone doing this Monday? This incredible day? Good morning, subscriber. Welcome back. Hello, Christina. Good evening. Welcome, everyone. If you're rejoining us here, welcome. If this is your first time, welcome. The purpose of this page, the purpose and the meaning of this YouTube page is for people who are tired of levels, people who are tired of dimensions, people who are tired of processes. Everyone's trying to make it there, right? And we all have a different idea or expectation as to what or where there is. But we all have this end result, and we're all trying to make it to that end before the end. And so that's what this YouTube page is for, to skip the processes, to skip all the various chapters and get to the end, get straight to the roots of all things. Skip the dimensions, skip the levels. That's what's tricky about the chakra system and all these systems, is once you make it to the crown chakra, once you make it to the top or the highest level, then what? That's when the ego hits a wall, and that's when depression or sadness can begin to overflow the being. Because once you hit that wall, you start to lose the purpose and the meaning. What is the point? What is the purpose? Nothing has changed, which was our expectation. Once we make it to the top level, once we get there, everything changes, and for the better. But we get there and we find this was not the case. In the very same way, we buy the new material, we buy the new car, the new model phone, the new iPhone, the new whatever. And it doesn't change anything. It doesn't change your situation. However you felt before you consumed this is how you feel after. Christina, welcome. Bob, welcome. Andreas, welcome. Deborah from the UK, welcome. We have Robert from Sweden. That's awesome. I love seeing all the different countries here. Look at us connecting in a way we would never be able to. That's another beautiful thing about the metaverse and everything. We're bringing all places to one presence. We no longer need to share the same physical space to connect with people across the world. We're bringing all places to one presence, and that presence is called the metaverse. And of course, the ego, the separate entity, has a theory about this metaverse. Of course, it has an opinion about this metaverse, and that opinion is danger, caution. Just like last year, danger, caution. 5G is going to kill us all. It's going to erase us, kill us, wipe us out. They're going to enslave us with our minds. But now, and that's the ego's game. It never stays focused on the same thing. So a year goes by, now we have a new focus. It's the metaverse and virtual reality and artificial intelligence and the mandated vaccines. But even next year, at the same time this year, we'll have our focus on something else. Coronavirus, the pandemic, this will be pushed aside, and our focus will be on something new. That is the ego's game. To continuously keep bringing up topics and subjects to prolong itself. Nikon P1000, welcome, welcome. Thank you all for being here too. Christina says, for those done with coping mechanisms, tired of feeling a void, we need to understand we are already there. That's right. You have the power all along. You've had it the whole time. You've been there the whole time. Thank you for creating time for us, Tyler. Absolutely. Listen, and that's the thing, is nothing is ours to possess here. That's where, when you get too dominant in the ego, we get entitled. We get too full of expectation, and it becomes a possession. This experience becomes mine. This time that I'm sharing with everyone, this is my time, mine, possess. But with an ego death, there's nothing to possess because there's no one possessing anything. Nothing is yours. But you are the paradox. Remember that always. You are the paradox. So while nothing is yours, it cannot be entirely yours until you have let go, until you have released the grip over this experience and yourself. Only then can you make room for the shedding of all that you are not. Only then can you prepare and make room for all that you are. This house, the car I drive, is not mine. Is not mine. This experience, not mine. And again, while it is, it isn't. Because it's obvious this is a temporary experience. We're given this temporary experience to pinpoint that experience which is beyond change and transformation. That's precisely what we are looking to identify here. That which is beyond the change and transformation. If you and everything and everyone that you love is bound by change, is bound by transformation, you have left yourself room here to discover that which does not change. That is where you and all your loved ones are waiting for you and welcoming you. They will welcome you home. That is where we all universally connect and join as one presence. Within this presence, and I don't mean within, because again, within and without are the same thing, but within this presence, there is only one being, if you will. And even the word I use, one, is still an ego, because the ego brings a value to one. This is why loneliness is a human construct, because the human says, I am the only one here, and that's where loneliness comes in. But loneliness is a concept as well as the number one. When you say all is one, the mind assigns the number one a value, a quantity. So when we say all is one, we're telling ourselves through the mind that everything here is a quantity of one. Now remember, while it is, it isn't. One is not a quantity, nor is it a value. So you must discover what these words are representing beyond the word itself, because all the words we use through the mind are empty. But That's how we remember and familiarize this reality. We don't remember words. Well, no, let me say this. We remember the objects as the words. That's how children learn. So they hold up objects to you and they say, "What is this called?" And they tell you, "This is called blank. This is called blank." And so instantaneously, you are assigning a word which is empty. And when I say empty, I mean it's not the object you're assigning the word to. So just because I call this a watch, does not mean that this object that wraps around something that tells the time, that does not mean that this becomes the word watch. You have never seen the words you use. Understand that. The words are empty. You've been given 3 eyes. This is the opening of the 3rd eye. And with New Age spirituality comes New Age expectation. A lot of superstition. This is why we must use our discernment. You have a lot of people selling you processes, not only on YouTube, but on social medias. And they're selling you on how to open the 3rd eye. And they're making it a process, and they're achieving it for you. All you have to do is pay them, and they achieve this for you. That is not how this works. You're being sold something. The opening of the 3rd eye is the purification of mind. This is the secret of the ancestors. They knew that the objects that they touched and physically could experience were not the words they use. So this is not a glove. I could call this a pen. If I had a 2-year-old sitting here with me right now, I could tell them this is a pen. And then in 5 minutes, I hold this up. What is this? It's a pen, because you're not seeing the words you assign the objects. The objects become the words. And just like that, you take that is a microscopic level. If you can confuse a glove with the word pen and the word pen with the word glove, imagine what you can do on a macrocosmic scale. You have birthed the universe, the planets, the stars, the cosmos, the sun, the moon, and gravity. Everything that you have spoken through the word exists in your mind, because the word is not the object you've represented it as, which means when you look at the bright sun, it is not the word sun. You are seeing the reflection of yourself. You are seeing this object in accordance to your own self-awareness, which is why so many people see a different earth, a different shape to the earth, a different universe, a different model universe. Nobody is seeing the same thing, because these objects don't exist as the words. The only way we could all universally see the same thing at the same time is purifying the mind. When we return to silence, when we return the words that have become this material world, when we return them to silence, we have died, because we exist through veils. And when I say veils, I mean words. We exist through words because we exist through objects. One of the most sacred kept objects or words is the body. The body is sacred. The body is something we will fight and die for, because we have mistaken this limited being as what we truly are in the beyond. We have mistaken this which is bound by change. This is bound to return to silence and to nothingness. This is something you know ahead of time. You know that this entire form will dissolve into the wind before your death. You will be gone without a trace. That's what brings forth this sacred time now, this moment, to discover yourself and reveal to you your true reflection. Because when we look in a mirror, this is the mirror in a bathroom, that type of mirror, That is the only place that we see our reflection, because we have limited ourselves. But when the world becomes your mirror, when you understand what you are actually seeing through, these are just projectors, and you're seeing through this, then that's how we all universally come to see the same thing. There is no body, there is no earth, there is just a presence, there is just a beingness. That's true non-duality, and there is not one word that you could assign to this beingness. That's again what drives the ego insane, because the ego is veiled through words. That is why the ego is trying to bring a word to this moment, and you simply cannot do it. The moment will evade your words every single time, because the moment is not something you can catch. It's not something you can stimulate through the senses. It's not something that can be spoken of. The moment is beyond your senses. The moment is the source to your senses. But we attach solely to the senses and slip up into those senses, forgetting entirely about the moment in which all sensory analysis are taking place. So yes, this may feel good. Sex, drugs, these things may feel good, but they're taking place within something allowing you to know this feel-good experience. Why fall in love with the temporary senses when you can fall in love with the source to that feel-good, if that makes sense? Because when you fall in love with the senses, you have to do. So if you're trying to achieve that high feel-good when you climax, you have to do something to get there and achieve that euphoric. The same with drugs, because you have fallen in love with the senses and not the presence that is allowing you to know such a feeling. You are not the feeling. You are the presence gifting you these senses to feel and to feel good. And I'm not saying we shouldn't enjoy these feel-goods and even the bad feeling. Embrace them too, because likewise, you are not limited to this. I'm trying to think of a good term here. So we're like an iceberg, basically. And most of our identity is below the surface or is beyond the surface. So when you're identifying with those emotions that feel good, like again, sex, drugs, these things, you're only identifying with this much of yourself, and you're falling in love with this. You're saying this is the best feeling in the world right here, this. When I have sex, when I do drugs, when I smoke cigarettes, whatever it is that stimulates you. When I drink alcohol, when I do this, this is how I feel. It's amazing. It stimulates me. It feels good. But what's waiting for you to embrace yourself is all of this. Your whole self. Again, if only this little feel good is what you're falling in love with, what about all of this that you have forgotten? It's just like in a movie theater. As soon as the screen comes on, nobody remembers or pays attention to the screen that the images are being projected on. Why? Because you fall in love with or get attached to the moving pieces, the moving parts on the screen. You attach to and identify with the moving parts. You attach and identify with the character. and you want him to triumph over the evil. So you say, I like this guy, I want him to win, and you get lost in the movie. By the time the movie is over, nobody has remembered or is paying attention to the screen. The screen has not moved, the screen has not changed, and yet you have had many moving parts on this screen. You've had many people and many places projected onto this screen. But has the screen changed at all? That is our presence. Our presence is immovable. It cannot change. But we identify as the many moving pieces, the parts appearing on this screen, appearing through what we can touch. We identify with just this and not the screen, the presence that is allowing the picture to be produced. Welcome, Brenda. Welcome back. Blackberry, welcome back. Gabriella, welcome, welcome. Okay, Stefan says, when we say the quote, out of the mind into the heart, do we really go into the heart, or we go in the opposite part of the brain, which tends to lean into feelings? So out of the mind into the heart. The mind is what... So let me put it this way. The mind is what has created all these tribes, all these races, all these nationalities, all these flags that you see people waving for their nationality. All that is rooting you and cementing you, anchoring you deeper into your ego. Because now you're claiming one piece of land, one flag. And again, there's a lot of hostility in today's days when you fly flags and when, because ours is better than yours, our country's better than yours, or we have more. It's always a comparison or a competition, right? All these tribes and races have been created through the mind. The mind is what's telling us, beyond a doubt, common sense, that there is a black man and a white man here. And if you say this to anybody, it would be common sense. You'd have to be stupid to believe that there is not a white man and a black man. But again, we must review where these characters are being seen from. These characters of black and white, right here, these only exist in the mind. You are given two sides of your brain. White and black, light and dark. We don't realize that the light and dark come from the same being. We don't realize that the white man and the black man come from the same being. So just because you have a different shade to your skin tone than I do does not make us a different person. But the mind will swear to you and tell you, common sense, we look different, we're different. That's how we fall into the trick of the mind, because it's so common sense, it's so obvious. How could you not see it? How could you not know otherwise? And that's how we fall into knowledge. We know stuff, and then we know more, and then we know too much. Because again, this knowledge is cheap. What you'll find is all this knowing is disguised as belief. And what is belief? Belief is nothing but a thought. So at most, we know ourselves only as deep as our thoughts. And what dies in our death? The thoughts we have, the words we have. So if you exist and only know yourself as deep as your thoughts, as white and black, as the black man came first or the white man came first, you will die with your thoughts, and it will be a tragedy for you. When you see people struggling on their deathbeds to let go or to die, this is why. They exist through smoke and mirrors. They exist through their words, and they haven't come to that realization until they are on their deathbed at the 11th hour, just before the clock strikes 12, and it's time to come back and return. That's when we realize we exist in these words. If these words are returning to silence, so am I. If these words are going, I go with it. Because we have veiled ourselves. And I know I'm taking a long time to answer your question, but please, I promise you, I will answer this in full depth. But the mind is where we are creating all separations. That is why we see with these two eyes different color tribes. There is no tribes. There is one person here. There is no color. There is one person here. There is no nationalities. There is one person here. So all the national flags and all these things, you can fly them till you're blue in the face. You can say that my land is better than yours or we'll conquer you. That is why we are in the state we are in. Comparison, differences. And I know some people will say, well, we have to be different. We have to exist differently, or what's the point? Yes, we do, but no, we don't. Again, this is why we're so angry with each other. We're so hostile with each other. We have no patience and no compassion for one another because we do not see each other as one. We see white and black. We see you and me. We see this and that. We see that you're a different nationality, a different color, a different this, a different that. It doesn't matter what it is, it's different. So all the separations, all these differences only exist through the mind. So out of the mind into the heart means you are no longer existent in separation, in diversity. You are returning yourself to source. If you want to connect with someone that you have lost to a physical death, someone that you love, and again, I've lost plenty of people last year. If you want to connect to these people that you love and they're not here anymore, they're not physically here anymore. If you want to connect to them out of the mind into the heart, remember Rumi's quote, I'm not only in you, but I am you. So I'm going to use someone that I've loved and lost as an example. Just last year, his name was John. He was my mom's ex-boyfriend and he lived with us here. Out of the mind into the heart. What that means is that how can I experience someone that is no longer physically here? How can I connect to them anymore? Always remember, the mind is where all these separations exist. So when we fall in love with the person and then we lose that person, it's because we have seen and fallen in love with that person only through the depths of our mind. We've allowed the person to become the title of friend, of family, of whatever title it is. And we've allowed that person to become the bodily image, the form that they are, which means the form is bound by change. Once that form is changed into the formless, you will be disturbed because you have fallen in love with your mind, with the form. All form is bound by change. All words are bound to return to silence. You cannot fall in love with the words or the person as the image. That is how we experience a loss. You have lost something because you have become separate to yourself. You have broken yourself into many pieces, and now there's different classifications of yourself. You exist through friends, through family, through mother, through father, through son, through uncle. And when it's your time to die, you will have to retract all these people back into yourself. Mother, father, sister, son, mother, or daughter, aunt, uncle, nephew. All these people, you have to retract them back because you have separated them from yourself. And when you retract them, it will feel as if they are dying. They never were real. But that's not the case. They are very real. But the source to them is right within you. Take Rumi's quote and use it. I am not only in you, I am you. How can I experience the person that I've loved and lost, known as John, if he's already me? I honor John, the person I love, by when I go out and live and experience day after day, the same qualities that you fall in love with people, for. So, for instance, some people are energetic, outgoing. They can make anyone laugh. You love their energy. These people, they're not actually dying. They live in you. And how can you honor them? How can you remember them? Remember, they're inside of you. Any qualities, any traits that you loved about them are accessible within yourself. If they were more outgoing or more friendly, that's how I can honor him, John, the person I have lost. He was a beautiful reflection on helping people. That's all he wanted to do, was help people. He would spend his last dollar to get you food, to buy you lunch before himself. So that is what I take from people I love and lost. He was a little more giving than I was, a little more, just here, have it. How can I honor him now that he's gone? I can become that giving person. And it's not saying go out and be a fake person or try and be like the next person, but those same qualities that you love about someone shine right within yourself. You are them. They are with you, right within your heart. So now I'll get to your question about the heart space. The heart space is where we all universally connect. So it doesn't matter what your name is or what you look like. When I'm looking straight this way, there is nothing to reflect my face back to me. All I am is a pair of eyes looking out, which means I cannot see what the outside of my face looks like. The same with you. Obviously, without this reflection, if you were to look straight, all you are is a pair of eyes that cannot see what you look like. So again, the heart is where we connect. All these emotions that we feel are universal. And I say this a lot. We may be feeling emotion in different degrees. You may feel more passionate or more angry about something. You may cry more easily than I do over a movie or sad things. But the feeling is universal. You may feel the feeling a little more, but the feeling is universal. Sadness is sadness. Different degrees, but sadness is sadness. If you have felt sadness, you can understand someone who has felt sadness. If you have felt anger, you can understand someone who has felt anger. And that's why Buddha said, the highest form of knowledge is understanding. Because if you can understand your brother, your sister, you are putting yourself in the heart space. You are putting yourself in them. So for instance, someone snaps at you and says, F you, or they curse you out. Put yourself in the heart space of understanding before you even react. Understand that the reflection standing before you is you. Understand that you can connect to his anger through understanding the emotion of anger. You have felt anger. Maybe not to the degree that the person cussing you out is, but you have felt that. Therefore, you can empathize, understand. And it's like that with any emotion. Any. Hi. How was your day? Good. Doing a video. So the heart is where we all connect, is where we all inevitably realize that we are the same being. Because once again, and I've used this with family trauma. I'll use my own self for example again. All my life, from a young kid to a young adult, I've had this anger toward my father. I've been angry my whole life, and I've had anger management issues. I've been in anger management from second grade to middle school, high school. When I was 5 years old, my mom took me to a therapist because I wouldn't talk. The therapist told me to draw a picture of whatever I want. It could be a rainbow, it could be the most beautiful thing I wanted. She wanted me to draw something that would make me happy. And so I drew something and I showed it to her, and obviously it was scribble scrabble. But the therapist asked me in front of my mom, "What is that?" And remember, it's supposed to be something beautiful that makes me happy. And I said, "This is a house on fire." And she said, "Who's that inside of it?" And I said, "My dad." And I was 5 years old. So all my life I've had and harbored this anger within me toward my father. And it's very simple. He rejected me. He didn't see me for who I was. He never accepted me. He made me feel like I wasn't good enough, right? And these are vulnerabilities. We can pawn them off as anger, but we're not truly angry. We're saddened. We feel rejected. We feel like we're not good enough. So it's not really anger. It's coded as something deeper than that. And so how could I heal this anger? How could I turn all this anger to my dad into a love, into an understanding? I first had to be my father. I had to separate myself from my mind, out of the mind, into the heart. I had to go back into my father's childhood and dig deep. If you're treating me this way, if you're communicating like this with me, if you're making me feel like I'm not good enough, let me go into your dad. Let me see how he made you feel. Let me see what he did to you. Let me see how he spoke with you. Then maybe I can understand. And I did just that, and I came to find his dad, my grandfather, chased my dad around with a knife. He beat them with a belt that was this thick. But that wasn't it. He would, of course, soak it in water first. Then whip, whip, whip. Purple marks. It wasn't just on their butt. They got hit on their leg, on their neck, in their head, their arms, their back. My dad maybe did half of that stuff. I never got chased with a knife. So it's obvious my dad healed some of these things because not everything was brought down onto me. He repeated some of those things his father did, but not all of them. And again, I could easily become my father by forever keeping that anger alive and saying, "This is your fault. How dare you treat me this way?" But once you are in the heart space, you can understand. At a young age, I was very scared of my father. As much anger as I had, he terrified me. And for obvious reason, he towered over me. He was humongous. The same way his father towered over him. And again, me digging up my father's childhood is what brought me to my peace. Because the same way, when my father wanted to spank me with a belt, I would get in a corner and do this. I had to realize that same scared little boy was my father. If anyone knew this feeling, my father did. And yeah, I could be angry and hate him for the rest of my life. But again, out of the mind, into the heart. If I am you, if we have both been in this position and felt that fear, felt that sadness, felt that rejection, I can understand. And again, that's how you heal anger, through understanding. Understanding is the highest form of knowledge. That is Buddha's quote. I can understand why I was rejected, why I was not seen, why I was communicated to this way. And again, while he healed some of those things, not everything was healed, which is where our job comes in, our responsibility. If you are consciously aware enough, it is your responsibility. With great power comes great responsibility. So again, I could have held this anger forever and hated my dad and made it his fault through detailed logic and explanation. I'm good with my words. I could very easily blame him and explain how this is his fault. Easily. But that's not how you heal. To heal, there is no place for blame. There is no place for fault. To begin healing requires understanding. Because again, how can I hate a man who has been this child, who has cowered to his dad? How can I hate him when he is me? He was me as a child in the corner, scared of his father. How can I hate him for that? I can connect to my dad by us universally being that child shriveled up in a corner. That's how me and my father connect. So while we're not the same, we are. Because again, the heart space is where we connect. We have both cowered to our dad. We have both shared that fear. We have both been physically abused, if you will, by someone who is supposed to be your protector. That's how you connect, through the heart. The mind will say, oh, well, he's not me, he has a different name, we look different, it was a different dad, different scenario. Absolutely is. Different parents, different kid. But again, all the feelings are universal. We all feel the same things in different degrees, in different levels. But the feeling remains the same. So I hope that answers your question. And I know that was like a 20-minute response, so forgive me, but I want to in-depth cover that, because that is a very good question. Out of the mind, into the heart. And that's how you absolutely shatter the cycle of reincarnation. Because, again, my grandfather, we're all the same person. Just like Rumi says, I am not just in you, I am you. We're all the same person. So just because my grandfather had a different appearance, a different birth name than my dad, different appearance, different birth name, doesn't mean anything. My grandfather's traumas and unfinished business, unhealed business, reincarnated, if you will, into my father because my father became his father. And whatever unfinished business I leave behind, I will become my father in some degree. And that's truly what made me begin to start looking into myself, is I was my father. I didn't just become him, I was him. And I know that's the message, we are all the same person, but I literally was him. He had reincarnated into me. But that's the beauty of realizing this, of being that consciously aware, is you can fix it. You can heal it. With great power comes great responsibility. If you are that consciously aware, heal it. Fix it. Break that cycle of reincarnation for your bloodline. Because I can tell you, through me, my grandfather will never reincarnate in my bloodline again. I have shattered that. Because I have healed. Which means whoever comes after me will not know the same communication, the same form of acknowledgement. It will be different. My grandfather will not reincarnate again. Because that's what happens. We become our parents. We're innate creatures. They teach us. We observe, and that's how we learn. So for women in abusive relationships, if you have kids, they're learning from you. You're showing them the way. If you have drugs, heavy drug presence in front of your kids, you're showing them the way. They are innate beings. We all learn through visual observation. Blackberry, who would be asking the question? Yeah, Lena says, I hurt when they hurt, sometimes more so. Is that right? Yeah, absolutely. And that's how we're able to sympathize with people. Like when you see someone starving on the side of the street, or you see someone in a worse situation than you, you're able to have sympathy, compassion, because of the heart space. Deep down, subconsciously, we all know, we're all we got. And when you say that, it means we're the only ones here. You are the only one here. That's what we're all we got means. So yeah, that's how we're able to hurt when other people hurt, or feel for other people. These feelings are universal. The heart is where we can all connect, where we can all understand one another, and there can be an argument, because again, how can you deny someone's feeling of anger or sadness? You have felt the same thing. But through the mind, that's where wars are started. Because again, you have this color, you have that color, you have this tribe, you have that tribe, you have this race, you have that race, this nationality, that nationality, this country, that country. You have this side and that side. You have right and you have wrong. But on each perception, they're both right. That's how wars begin. Neither one is wrong, because their perception is truth, is reality. That's where all division begins, the mind. That's where wars begin, the mind. That's where arguments begin, the mind. That's why we are in the state we are in today, not only with ourselves and depression, but with each other and hostility. Hostility is at an all-time high with one another. And depression is at an all-time high with ourselves. Elizabeth, you do not need to apologize. You are welcome here anytime. Please, please, don't apologize. You don't owe me an apology. You're welcome here. And I'm happy you're here, so yeah, don't worry about the past. It's like the time someone spit on Buddha's face. The Buddha was giving a lesson, and someone who obviously didn't resonate walked up to him and told him that this was nonsense, basically, and they didn't agree. And of course the Buddha didn't respond, wouldn't respond to him. And so the guy grew more angry. And before he left Buddha, he spit on him right in his face. And all his disciples stood up and were ready to remove him, to get him out of Buddha's presence. And Buddha told them to let him go. Leave him alone. Days later, the man returned to Buddha and he said, I couldn't sleep because of you. I lost sleep because of you. I spit on your face and you loved me. You showed me love. You didn't get angry. You didn't insult me. You still loved me. Even in the worst action. Even in my worst action, you love me. And he says, I'm sorry. And Buddha says, you don't need to apologize because you're not the same person that you were that day. And that's one example of how love always triumphs over hate. Especially when you're going through hate. It may not seem like you're making a difference, but I promise you, that's how you shatter hate. That's how you destroy hate, because hate cannot live where love is present. When you love someone, regardless of them hating you, regardless of them treating you horrible or disgusting, always remember, you will have made a bigger impact on them than you are able to see. That's the best way to plant seeds, right? Love is the answer. So loving someone, even in their worst action, even at their worst, we're all we have. We're all we got. Vladimir says, why change yourself for other people's actions? It's not changing yourself per se, but it's the ultimate self-control. The ultimate display of self-control. So it's not a sacrifice to me to not respond. It's not me changing myself. I'm in the ultimate control. Osho once said about Buddha that Buddha never reacted to people because a Buddha doesn't react. He's only able to act within himself. A Buddha knows that anything you say or do to him is not you doing it to him, you're doing it to yourself. But you are unaware of who you are, which is why he had compassion and understanding for those who were able to lash out at him or be not very nice. And that should be the goal, is consciously acting throughout your day and not reacting. Reaction is ego. Reaction is how we get ourselves in trouble. Is how we make other people's turmoil our own punishment. Because again, someone's having a bad day, they curse you out. It's not on you. It's not your turmoil. They're obviously harboring this not so good feeling within themselves. And the moment you react, you have matched that frequency, if you will. You have matched that or taken on that not so good feeling. But when you can consciously act in response to these people, it's a game changer. You're not taking on the hate or the anger or the bad day. Keep it moving. And I've been able to have a lot of practice with this working at Home Depot. I get told to go F myself at least once a day, so there's always practice and there's always angry customers. So there's always that, you know. I picked a good incarnation here, you know. I don't work at Publix where I'm helping people find their milk. I'm working at Home Depot with angry contractors who want to get their job done, and now But thank you to everyone who has been engaged, sharing, donating. Appreciate everyone more than words can express. I'll try and go live again tomorrow, but if not, you can expect me sometime this week. Hope everyone's appreciated this video and hopefully found some value in it. Feel free to share if this resonates, and I'll see you guys.